15 spine-chilling true stories revealed from the haunted depths of Reddit's sinister side. Mike had seen the posts before, claiming they were just figments of overactive imaginations. But reading lines like "the neighbor's lights flickered ominously while I heard whispers that chilled my blood" that was a different beast. Each sinister story, like an uninvited guest, crept into his mind, tightening the grip of paranoia on his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that Maplewood, with its white picket fences and pristine lawns, hid secrets darker than its sunny facade suggested. As Mike scrolled through the latest subreddit horror threads late at night, a cold sweat formed on his brow. He read about a family who heard tapping at their window, just subtle enough to be dismissed but frequent enough to gnaw at their sanity. Were the Hargreaves, the couple down the street who hosted gatherings where laughter morphed into something unsettling, capable of similar frights? Mike felt his heart race. An innocent laugh could easily disguise something much more sinister. His wife Jenna, ever the rock in their family, felt the balance shift in their home as Mike spiraled deeper into fear. She lay awake beside him, her heart pounding with an unease of her own, triggered by the Hargreaves next door, whose late-night gatherings seemed a community apart. Each flickering light from their home became a black hole of mystery, swallowing any remnants of trust she had in their idyllic neighborhood. And as she confided in her father, Tom, the town's police officer, he only chuckled, attributing her worries to the wild crazes of new parenthood. "You're worrying too much, honey. Just keep an eye on Lily, okay?" But the darkness crept in like thick fog. Strange noises began to haunt their nights. Eerie whispers floated through the air. Distorted shadows flickered against their window, disappearing just as Mike dared to look. The world outside morphed into something unrecognizable. And then came a fateful night when Lily, their spirited daughter, vanished without a trace. Mike felt a visceral pain at the pit of his stomach, each second ticking away louder than a countdown to disaster. Panic twined with anger as they raced to find clues, to grasp anything tethering them to their beloved little girl. Every shadow seemed to mock him now. Just as he resolved to confront the Hargreaves, he received an ominous notification, a chilling message hinting at a secret ritual planned for the next night, accompanied by whispers of a sacrifice. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jenna's heart raced as Mike shared the grave details. They stood at the precipice of dread, one foot in the safety of day-to-day life and the other in a shadowy realm where nothing was as it seemed. Each passing moment, with the Hargreaves' laughter ringing unnaturally through the night, pushed them toward a boogeyman they hadn't imagined existed. When had secrets turned so sinister? As they prepared to confront the grotesque reality of the Hargreaves and rescue Lily, their neighborhood became a labyrinth of dread. Every friendly face morphed into a potential threat, and trust decayed in the chilling air. What dark rituals were hidden beneath Maplewood's pristine sheen? The question lingered, echoing in the depths of their hearts, demanding to be answered. With each passing hour, the grip of fear tightened around Mike and Jenna. Night enveloped Maplewood in darkness, leaving only a sliver of moonlight illuminating the path ahead. The Hargreaves' house loomed ominously across the street, their windows glowing with a flickering light that felt more like a warning than an invitation. Leaving Lily behind felt like an act of betrayal. Each decision weighed heavy on their hearts. Mike's hands trembled as he clutched his phone, the chilling notification still fresh in his mind. A gathering, a ritual. Monica Hargreaves had commented on it, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced with something darker. "You'll want to see what's happening tomorrow night," it had read, accompanied by a symbol he didn't recognize, shadowy and intimidating. "They're doing something to her, I know it." Mike's voice was hoarse, barely more than a whisper. He was drowning in paranoia, easily swallowing every thread of doubt into a pit of certainty. Jenna glanced at him, her brow furrowing with concern. "Mike, we need to think. Confronting them might be dangerous." But Mike shook off the uneasiness in her voice. Dangerous? What is more dangerous than losing Lily? The suffocating terror crept from the corners of his mind, coiling itself around his sanity. He felt trapped in an endless loop of despair and urgency, a wild beast scrambling for escape. Time slipped away, dragging like an anchor. When the clock struck midnight, they slipped quietly from their home, guided only by the unsettling glow of the Hargreaves lights. The air felt electric, charged with fear and anticipation. Shadows danced across the pavement, stretching unnaturally as if alive. Each step they took echoed in the stillness, amplifying the dread that threatened to consume them whole. As they neared the Hargreaves house, whispers floated through the air, familiar yet alien, like fragments of a twisted melody. "Can you hear that?" Jenna asked, her voice a quiver. Mike nodded, his heart pounding. They froze at the edge of the yard, the manicured grass underfoot suddenly feeling like a treacherous bog. The front door swung open, revealing the Hargreaves surrounded by guests. Their laughter sliced through the darkness, a chilling sound that felt like a twisted celebration. Mike's insides twisted at the sight of their neighbors draped in cloaks, faces obscured by hoods, but their eyes shone with an otherworldly light. In the center of the gathering, a circle formed, complete with candles that flickered eerily. "What in the world?" Jenna breathed, stepping back instinctively. This was no ordinary gathering. An overwhelming sense of hopelessness washed over her, drowning any flicker of courage. "We have to go back," she urged, but Mike stood frozen, rooted by the gravity of the scene unfolding before them. He could see something or someone at the center of that circle. Heart racing, he dared to lean closer, squinting through the shadows. And then he saw her. Lily, tied to an altar made of gnarled wood, her tiny figure eerily still amid the candlelight. The moment boiled with adrenaline and horror, pulses of cold sweat trickling down Mike's spine. "We have to save her," he roared, breaking the stillness that time seemed to have wrapped around them. In that split second, every head turned. Eyes, wide and gleaming beneath the hoods, fixated on their presence. A heavy silence bore down, punctured only by the shallow whispers that swirled in the air. "Run, Jenna!" Mike urged, but as the first screams ripped from his throat, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Something dark stirred in the shadows, a presence lurking beyond their comprehension, hungry for chaos. The ritual had begun. Just how deeply embedded were the Hargreaves into the darkness of this unholy gathering? As they spun to escape, each breath felt like a countdown to an unknown horror. Could they reach Lily before the night devoured them whole? With terror fleeing through their veins, they sprinted towards the house, aware that time was slipping through their fingers like sand. But the fleeting thought of a dark figure stalking them pushed adrenaline higher. Who or what were they to face when the moon hung heavy in a twilight of dread? The moment they turned, Mike felt a surge of fear unlike anything he had ever known. His feet moved instinctively, but a fear that curled like smoke in his chest screamed that they weren't alone. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows that danced around them, warping reality into something unrecognizable. Each turn brought them closer to the dark mass of cloaked figures, now moving with a predatory grace. "Faster!" Jenna gasped, following Mike's lead, her breath coming out in frantic bursts. The dark figure loomed big in her mind, an unseen force that felt all too real, breathing, watching. It made her skin crawl. They reached the edge of the yard, trembling as they glanced back. The Hargreaves circle moved as one, heads canted, watching, waiting. A chill spread down Jenna's spine as she caught sight of the altar. Lily, still bound, looking more like a porcelain doll than the spirited girl they knew. Panic surged again. They needed a plan, but all Mike could hear was the pounding of his heart urging him forward. "Where do we go?" Jenna hissed, darting her eyes nervously around. Every shadow seemed a threat, every whisper a warning. "I don't know. Just anywhere but here," Mike replied, loathing each second they stayed close to the ritual, that mockery of a celebration taking place behind them. A sudden scream pierced the air, a high-pitched wail that cut through the tension. It was Lily. Time froze. Mike's heart plummeted. He spun around just in time to see a dark figure, cloaked and looming, stepping toward the altar. The candlelight flickered as if it breathed in the charged energy of fear, shadowy hands rising as the chant escalated, a haunting symphony led by the Hargreaves. "This way!" Mike yelled, dragging Jenna along the side of the house, away from the gathering, away from the nightmare. They ducked beneath leaning branches, their legs barely keeping up with the primal instinct to run. "It won't be enough," Jenna cried. "What are we doing? We can't just leave her." Mike stopped, his breath heaving, reality crashing in with brutal clarity. They had to go back. They had to face the darkness. He turned, steeling himself for the inevitable confrontation. "Come on." He gritted through clenched teeth. As they approached the edge of the yard again, they could see the figures, still chanting, still focused on Lily. The air around them thickened, it felt alive, pulsating with dark energy. "We're too late." Jenna's voice quivered, dread pooling in her stomach as the realization sank in. But Mike pushed the fear down. Not yet without other options, he spotted an opening, an unlit porch on the side of the house that offered a vantage point tucked away from the main ritual, a niche in the shadows. They slipped behind the wooden beams, their hearts thudding loudly in the suffocating silence. "What do we do?" Jenna asked, almost breathless. "We wait for our moment," Mike whispered, the weight of their choice heavy in the air. They crouched low, peering around the corner. The gathering had intensified, the flames danced eerily, flickering reflections casting grotesque faces across the grass. Suddenly, a piercing cry burst from the crowd, and a figure detached from the rest, darting toward them. Panic surged through Mike. It was someone from the gathering, darting away from the altar, eyes wild. "Help!" she screamed, having recognized them. "Run!" Jenna shouted, pulling Mike back as the cloaked figures began to break away from their formation, advancing toward the source of the voice. With a jolt of adrenaline, Mike seized Jenna's hand, and they sprinted forward, joining the fleeting figure as they rushed toward the trees lining the edge of the yard, which offered the only sanctuary. But would the embrace of the woods be as safe as they hoped? They dashed into the darkness, branches scratching at their skin, the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. Footsteps thrummed in the night, the chase had begun. Would they find refuge in the forest, or would those shadows feel like home as darkness claimed them? The forest loomed ahead, foreboding yet promising. Escape. But what horrors awaited them there? The trees closed in around them, skeletal branches intertwining like gnarled fingers. Mike's heart raced as he fought through the thick underbrush, each snap of a twig louder than the last. Jenna kept pace, her breath hitching as they plunged deeper into the shadows. The forest swallowed their cries, leaving only the oppressive silence and the fear thrumming in their veins. "Where are we even going?" Jenna hissed, glancing over her shoulder. The dim light from the Hargreaves' fire flickered like a warning beacon behind them. "I don't know." Mike shouted back, urgency coating his voice. "We just need to get away." He could feel the presence of their pursuers, like a dark fog spreading through the trees. It was only a matter of time before they caught up. They stumbled into a small clearing, moonlight illuminating patches of the ground. The breathless moment felt unreal, as if the forest itself held its breath. They had a second to collect themselves, a second before the haunting sound of chanting began to filter through the trees. "We have to keep moving," Mike urged, pulling Jenna toward the edge of the clearing. But as they stepped forward, the ground shifted beneath them, unstable, as if the earth itself wanted to swallow them whole. Jenna gasped, halting in her tracks. "Mike," she said, eyes wide. "What if we get lost out here? Better than being their sacrifice." He shot back, the flicker of fear flaring into anger. They had to go. Yet Jenna hesitated, her gaze fixed on the tree line behind them. Before he could pull her back, dark shapes flitted between the trees, figures cloaked in shadow, moving with intent. They were close, too close. The realization hit Mike like a punch. That scream had been a warning. They had to act. "We can't let them find us, we need to hide," he said, scanning the clearing for something, anything that would shield them. There. Jenna pointed, her voice trembling. A hollow tree lay on its side, large enough for both of them to squeeze into. Go. Mike pushed her toward it and followed, cramming them both inside just as a rustle of leaves not far from their hiding place sent icy fingers up his spine. They pressed against each other, their breaths shallow, fighting to silence the pounding of their hearts. From their cramped refuge, Mike could hear the soft whispers of the Hargreaves, weaving through the shadows around the clearing. The words felt sinister, heavy with a promise of darkness that clung to the night. "They're here for us," Mike breathed, and Jenna nodded, her face pale and tense. "We can't let them take us, not after Lily." The chant grew louder, wrapping around them like a shroud. Within it, Mike thought he could make out Lily's name, woven into the fabric of their dreadful song. It twisted like a knife in his gut. Every syllable felt like a dagger, each word oozing malice. Suddenly, a figure broke from the gathering, striding purposefully toward their clearing. The moon cast an otherworldly glow, illuminating the dark cloak draped over the individual. Mike held his breath, his heart clamoring against his ribs. Whatever the cloaked figure wanted, he couldn't let it find them. But as he opened his mouth to whisper a warning to Jenna, the ground beneath them vibrated, the tree shivered, and a low growl echoed from within the dark deep, resonating and approaching. "Mike," Jenna whispered. Fear laced her voice. "What is that?" They exchanged frantic glances as the growl grew louder, resonating from the shadows just outside their makeshift prison. A monstrous presence was advancing, and whatever it was would not be content with just Lily. Then, the chanting reached a fever pitch, and shadows converged upon the clearing, drawn by the promise of power and flesh. Time stilled, and Mike could only grip Jenna tighter as they awaited whatever horror would emerge. Would the night reveal its darkest secret, or become their doom? The growl erupted into a roar that made the forest tremble. The darkness was arriving. Would they survive the confrontation, or would it swallow them whole? The roar echoed like thunder, vibrating through the ground and making the hollow tree shudder around them. Mike's heart raced, each beat pounding like a war drum in the heat of battle. The shadows outside writhed and pulsed, glimmering in the moonlight as if animated by some monstrous will. "What is that?" Jenna whispered again, trembling against him. Her eyes were wide with terror, reflecting the chaos unfolding outside their flimsy sanctuary. "I don't know," Mike replied, though he feared he could guess. The chant had intensified, a primal call weaving through the night like an ugly serpent, and now the monstrous growls seemed to answer it with dreadful eagerness. "Stay quiet," he urged, forcing his voice to a steadiness he didn't feel. Yet even as he spoke, the growling morphed into snarls, deep and hungry, like a beast savoring the scent of its prey. He could hear the otherworldly murmurs of the Hargreaves now, drawing ever closer, adding to the suffocating atmosphere. He wanted to storm out of the tree, fight, run, anything but cower here, but reason kept him glued beside Jenna. They were trapped, the tree their flimsy shield against whatever vile horrors lurked in the darkness. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, gliding through the thick underbrush towards the clearing. It was cloaked in black, the fabric billowing around it like smoke. The creature held a staff, topped with a shard of crystal that caught the moonlight, refracting it into ghostly colors that danced like flames. "Jenna," Mike hissed, gripping her arm tightly, "we can't make a sound." The figure approached the center of the clearing, and Mike felt the earth shift again beneath them. Panic surged in his chest, it could sense them. He could see the glint of its eyes now, two smoldering coals reflecting hunger, scanning the darkness. It seemed to pause, leaning slightly, as if keenly aware of their hidden presence. The chanting crescendoed, voices rising in a frenzied harmony that clawed at Mike's sanity. The figure raised the staff, and silence fell, a heavy, oppressive silence that seemed to smother the cries of the forest. Then the roars erupted again, joined this time by a chorus of howls, a symphony of terror, a pact forged in blood. "What do they want?" Jenna's voice cracked, fear slipping out in desperation. Mike swallowed hard, glancing at the gathering shadows, the dark figures bowing in deference to the cloaked leader. "They want us. They want to offer us." "Offer us what?" She stammered, pressing harder against him, seeking comfort in the danger that he didn't answer, the icy claws of dread tightening around his throat. The sanity of the situation slipped like sand through his fingers. The chanting resumed, and Mike caught the word sacrifice weaving through the vocal tapestry, each utterance weighted with sinister purpose. Without warning, the water-like shadows of the forest began to pulse again, morphing into beastly outlines. Dark forms loomed, edging closer, hunger etched across their grotesque faces. Mike could almost feel the hot breath of one as it stepped into the clearing, revealing rows of jagged teeth under the ghostly light. His instinct screamed at him to move, to escape this hell, yet he was frozen, met with the brutal realization that his worst nightmare was standing mere feet away. "Jenna!" he whispered, terror punctuating every syllable. The figures were not just there to watch, they were waiting to participate. This time, the chorus of voices transformed into a chant directed towards them, calling out for the very essence of their existence. "Mike," Jenna whimpered, and he felt her body tremble against his. The darkness was almost upon them, flickering menacingly. More distant howls erupted, pauses filled with breathless anticipation. What would they become if lost to this night? Whatever threat was at hand was bringing them together, pulling the fabric of the night tighter around their fate. In that tense moment, Mike knew they would have to choose to stay hidden or risk everything for a chance to fight back. As the chanting surged once more, the growl returned, deep echoing through the woods, igniting a primal urge within Mike to break free. But was it already too late? Would they emerge from this darkness, or was this the end of their horrifying chase? In the hush that followed, dread loomed heavier than before, and Mike's thoughts spiraled as realization dawned, haunted eyes glimmering from the trees, hungry for what was to come. What price would they pay as shadows danced, ready to consume them whole? The chanting reached a fever pitch, the air thick with the acrid scent of something ancient and cursed. Mike felt his skin crawl, each sound a dagger piercing the stillness. The howls of the creatures blended, creating a discordant symphony of hunger that sent chills skittering down his spine. Suddenly, the cloaked figure lowered its staff. The moonlight fractured, casting eerie patterns over the dark congregation. Mike's gaze darted. The jagged teeth of the beasts now glistened, and their eyes were pools of utter darkness, devoid of mercy. "Jenna, we have to move," Mike hissed, his voice strained and barely above a whisper. He could feel the tremor of fear coursing through him, stronger than ever, but Jenna's wide eyes locked onto the dark silhouettes emerging from the woods, paralyzed by terror. "They won't let us go," she breathed, her words laced with despair. "We can't just sit here. We have to either fight or run." The urgency in Mike's voice broke through the haze of fear, and he pulled her arm, attempting to break the spell of inertia. As the chant heightened, something shifted among the creatures. Their forms rigidified, their attention riveted on the cloaked leader. Mike dared to steal a glance at the figure, who now gnarled its lips into a twisted semblance of a smile. It gestured broadly with the staff, and the air shimmered. The shadows responded, swirling around them like a thunderstorm ready to unleash its fury. Then came the voice, deep and resonant, cutting through the chant like a serrated knife. "Two shall be chosen," it declared, reverberating through the clearing. "Two to satisfy the hunger. Chosen for what?" Mike shouted, his heart racing. He was desperate, clawing at the fraying edges of sanity. "Sacrifice." The voice boomed, echoing into the depths of the night. The creatures shuddered in unison, their eyes gleaming like predatory stars, waiting with dreadful anticipation. Panic surged again. People didn't just vanish into the woods. They didn't just become one with the shadows. Not without a fight. "We have to die fighting." Mike's voice cracked, and he felt Jenna's grip tighten, shaking her head. No, an overwhelming roar disrupted the atmosphere, signaling move of monstrous bodies closing in, pressing ever closer to the hollow tree. Mike's fists clenched. He had seen glimpses of evil before, but this the sheer madness. He couldn't let it swallow them up. "Listen to me," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Whatever happens, we're getting out of here. We can't." One of the dark figures lunged forward, its movement swift and baleful. Mike's instincts kicked into overdrive. In a desperate act, he shoved Jenna backward, away from the impending shadow. As she stumbled, her foot caught on a root. She cried out, but Mike was already surging forward, ready to face the unseen terror. The growl echoed through him. He had to act now. But before he could leap into action, a deafening clang resounded, cutting through the tension, a chain reaction of growls silencing. Mike spun around, eyes wide, to find Jenna standing again, the crystal from the figure's staff glowing fiercely in her trembling hands. "What did you?" A surge of energy crackled between them, illuminating the surroundings in a spectral glow. For an instant, the beasts hesitated, their grotesque forms flinching as if struck by an unseen force. And then, everything shifted. The shadows charged forth, bearing teeth sharper than knives, and there was no time left. Mike felt the fear ramping up, its own panic fueled his desperate fight or flight response. Would they stand together, or would they be consumed by the darkness that wanted them to stay forever? The air hung thick with danger as bloodthirst echoed louder, and it became clear the choice they had to make would not just alter their fates, but define what it meant to face the abyss. As the figures lunged forward, Mike squeezed Jenna's hand tighter. They both knew that whatever they unleashed next would seal their fate. But how much darkness could they wake inside? The shadows loomed larger, entwining the clearing, and Mike's breath caught. Would they emerge from this cursed night, or would it consume them whole? The crystal pulsated in Jenna's hand, casting a harsh light that illuminated the twisted faces of the beasts. For a fleeting moment, Mike saw something unexpected in those dark eyes: fear. Not for the young couple, but for the unknown power radiating from the shimmering crystal. "This way!" Mike yelled, pulling Jenna as they surged towards the thick underbrush. The chant crescendoed behind them, a terrible encouragement for the darkness to pursue. Branches clawed at their clothes as they plunged through the thicket, the forest closing around them, a living prison eager to reclaim its lost. The growls faded slightly, as if the shadows were unsure. But that moment of relief was snatched away when Mike felt a heavy weight, a presence that settled somewhere behind him. A glance showed one of the dark figures had broken free, its limbs stretching unnaturally as it barreled after them faster than Mike thought possible. "Run!" he screamed, adrenaline spiking through his veins. They dodged trees and leapt over roots, the creature's breath hot on their heels. Jenna's footsteps faltered, and Mike felt her slipping away. He looked back, panic seizing him as he saw her struggle to keep pace. "Jenna, come on!" he shouted, reaching for her arm. Somehow, he regained her hand, pulling her forward as he turned back towards the night ahead. They burst into a small clearing, moonlight washing over them, but it was no sanctuary. The eyes of the entire monstrous congregation now watched, drawn to the light from the crystal. "Choices have consequences." The voice from earlier rumbled through the air. It reverberated in Mike's chest, icy and clammy. What does that even mean? He breathed, helplessness washing over him like a tide. He looked down at the crystal, pulsating softly in Jenna's grip. What does this thing want? Jenna's face was pale, and her hair whipped around her from the unseen wind. "I think it's," she started, but the growling intensified, drowning out her words. The shadowy figures moved closer, emboldened by the energy emanating from the crystal. The cloaked leader stood at the edge of the shadows, watching, waiting. "The time is nigh," it cried, extending its staff. Mike could feel fear rolling off Jenna in waves. He had to act. "You have to focus," he urged her. "I think it's connected to us somehow. If we can harness it, do what?" she exclaimed, her eyes wide with uncertainty. Yet a flicker of hope ignited in her gaze, as if the connection between them illustrated a dramatic possibility. "Find your strength. Push the light towards them, Jenna." The air thickened around them. The creatures inched forward, teeth glinting in the moonlight. The shimmers from the crystal flickered wildly in response to the encroaching beasts, as if sensing the threat. Jenna took a shaky breath. "I'll try," and then, a horrifying howl erupted from the shadows as a creature lunged forward. The leader had commanded it into action. Mike felt every hair on his body stand at attention. The ground beneath them tremored, and the shadows lunged as one. Without thinking, Mike pressed against Jenna's back, amplifying her resolve, urging her to concentrate. "Do it now!" he shouted, desperation dripping from every word. In response, Jenna closed her eyes, her features twisting in concentration. The crystal blazed in her hands, and a beam of light shot forth, striking the rushing forms head-on. For a second, the beasts recoiled, and doubt flickered in their feral eyes. But that second was all it took for the cloaked figure to raise its staff higher, releasing a guttural screech. Something primal ripped through the air, fluid shadows twisted unnaturally, creating a vortex of murmurs intertwined with snarling. The ground erupted with dark tendrils, snaking towards Mike and Jenna, grasping at their feet. "Hold on!" Mike yelled, but the darkness wrapped itself around him like 1,000 icy hands. Jenna cried out, her fear crashing like waves across their bond, threatening to break it. "Fight it, Jenna!" he urged as her grip on the crystal faltered, but the world around them twisted and flickered. And soon, it was too late. Mike watched in horror as Jenna's light dimmed, leaving only the monstrous figures gaping hungrily around them. Would they become part of the darkness, forever lost to the void that had claimed so many? The shadows whispered promises of despair as Mike fought against the deepening darkness, struggling to maintain his hold on reality. It was not just a fight for survival anymore. It was a battle against the creeping madness that threatened to consume them whole. As the abyss loomed closer, an ancient voice echoed within his mind, "Choose wisely." What did that mean? And what terrible choice waited just beyond the horizon, ready to finish what had been started? The darkness tightened its grip, squeezing the breath from Mike's lungs as he and Jenna swayed under the weight of shame and terror. Panic surged through him. He pulled at Jenna, shouting her name, but the shadows were rising, transforming into a flurry of twisting silhouettes, each one more menacing than the last. The leader hovered, eyes burning like coals, watching their despair with a twisted delight. "Jenna!" His voice shattered against the chaos. She was losing herself, the light in her eyes flickering like the dying embers of a fire. Mike felt the painful pull of the abyss beneath them, his heart pounding against his chest as if trying to escape. Desperation clawed at him. "You can't let it take you, you have to fight." She seemed to hear him, breath trembling. It's too powerful." Her fingers trembled on the crystal, the light waning under the oppressive shadows that lunged at them. "Listen to me," he hissed, panic edging his words, "you're stronger than this. It's feeding off your fear." He stepped closer, forcing her to focus. "Remember the moment we found this damn thing? That thrill? That power? Use it." With every syllable, the chanting intensified, a cacophony of nightmarish voices urging them toward despair. The air thickened, clotting in Mike's throat as the poisonous darkness seeped deeper, numbing his resolve. "Together!" he shouted. "We're in this together. Remember why we fought to be here." Jenna's gaze flickered, a glimmer of warmth breaking through the darkness. Taking a deep breath, she squeezed the crystal tighter. The surge of light that emanated pushed back against the creeping shadows, forcing a small circle of clarity around them. As if sensing the shift, the beasts recoiled once more. The pulse of the crystal hummed louder, vibrating against Jenna's palm. I can feel it." she gasped, eyes narrowing in determination. "Then show them." Mike roared, feeling the bond strengthen, a current of hope threading through the chaos. With a shout, Jenna threw her arms upward, channeling every fragment of her will into the crystal. A blinding beam screamed forth, cutting through the morass of darkness, igniting the air around them like a flare. The creatures shrieked, the sound a horrific dissonance that echoed through the forest. But the creature's leader surged forward, its form shifting, eyes aflame with rage. "Foolish mortals!" it bellowed, the voice wrapping around them like a vice. "You think you can defy us? No. We won to be yours." Jenna shouted, her voice strong now. The light pulsated fiercely, illuminating her defiance. The shadows twisted, pulling at the edges of the clearing like a storm, swirling into a vortex of howls and cries. Mike and Jenna stood firm, hearts racing as the overwhelming force crashed down upon them, threatening to drown them in chaos. The orb of light expanded, threatening to engulf the creatures. Yet, deep in the shadows, Mike felt something shift, an ancient, malignant power that quivered with a promise. Beneath his feet, the ground trembled, vibrating with a sinister energy. "Mike!" Jenna gasped, her voice trembling with fear as more darkness surged. "It's too much. Don't give up!" he screamed, feeling the ground split beneath them. The leader's laughter echoed menacingly, sinister glee dancing through its words. "You will choke on your decisions." Suddenly, Jenna's eyes widened, and a thought flickered across her features, igniting a spark of realization. "What if we try to take it back?" "What do you mean?" "The story, it's not just ours. It belongs to everyone. The choices we made led us here. Maybe, we can redirect it." Before Mike could process her words, Jenna's light shifted, and she began to channel their shared energy, her determination infusing the beam of light with their combined history. The joys, fears, regrets, all crystallized in that moment. The ground roared beneath them, shadows swirling violently, clawing to reclaim what they once thought theirs. But something shifted deep within Mike. The urgency of her words ignited his spirit. The darkness howled again, an echo of malice that brushed their skin like ice. "Take it, Jenna. Take it all back." In an instant, their connection intensified. The pulse of the crystal surged, vibrant in the face of despair. The shadowy figures unleashed a torrent of rage, but Mike and Jenna fortified against the tide, ready to claim their destiny. If only they could unravel the labyrinth of darkness surrounding them. Would they shatter the curse that had plagued so many before them? Or had they unwittingly stepped into an even darker fate? Time hung in the balance, suspended between what was known and the abyss awaiting their dreadful choice. The light erupted from the crystal, a blinding wave that engulfed the clearing, pushing back the grasping shadows, but it was not enough. The leader of the dark creatures, its form shifting and writhing, surged forward with renewed fury. "You are nothing but whispers in the dark," it roared, the voice steeped in ancient malice. Mike could feel the air crackle with energy, as if the very atmosphere was charged with the tension between them and the darkness. He stumbled, fear gnawing at him. The ground beneath was raw, shaking, splintering in response to the chaos. "Jenna! We need to, I know," she yelled, determination igniting her voice. "We take it back together. All of it." Her eyes blazed with resolve, and Mike felt the warmth of her spirit push against the icy grip of their fate. Yet the shadows hissed, the howls wrapping around them, laced with echoes of past victims, taunting their bravery. They were growing restless, ready to strike with a vengeance. The shadows lunged. With a firm grip on the crystal, Jenna closed her eyes and began to chant, weaving a thread of their memories into the light. Mike joined her, heart racing, reluctantly letting vulnerability mix with defiance. He thought of their laughter, the adventure that had led them here, the choices that brought them together. He envisioned the moments that gave them strength. White-hot energy roared to life, the light blossoming brighter with each word they shared. The creatures writhed, recoiling at the memory of warmth and connection, their forms flickering dangerously. "You think these memories matter?" the leader howled, its voice breaking into a snarled laugh. "They are but echoes of a foolish past." But Mike and Jenna stood firm, fingers intertwined around the crystal, hearts synchronized against the tide of despair. They shouted together, their voices merging in a powerful declaration of defiance. "We reclaim what is ours." The ground quaked, trembling beneath the clash of light and shadow. Waves of energy surged from the orb, bursting like splintering glass, casting shards of illumination that sliced through the nightmare surrounding them. "Fight it! Don't relent!" Mike shouted, as the creatures shrieked, a horrendous sound that sent spikes of terror through his body. The abyss below throbbed, striving to pull them down, as if aware it was losing its grip. Jenna's face twisted in pain, but she held strong. Her voice cut through the cacophony, persistent and unwavering. "We are not afraid. In that moment, the shadows froze, recoiling in shock, their twisted forms flickering like dying flames. The leader let out a guttural roar, rage echoing through the void as it imagined its defeat. Suddenly, there was a rupture, a fissure in the air as the light dove deeper threads of their combined essence weaving a barrier against the onslaught. The shadows screamed, each note piercing the night, drowning in the brilliance of their unified strength. But even as the tide turned, something gnawed at Mike's thoughts, an unthinkable doubt creeping in. "Jenna, what if this isn't enough?" he whispered, dread curling in his chest. Without a glance away from her focus, she replied, "It has to be. We can't let them take us." As she rallied her final strength, the shadows began to pull back, huddling against the forces of the light. Visions of the people they actually cared about flashed before them in a whirlwind. They were all connected to this moment, and yet, Mike felt an unnerving sense that something was still lurking in the depths of the dark. Then the shadow leader snickered darkly, its voice cold as steel, "You are naive, my children. Do you really think this light can hold us forever?" With that, the depths of darkness surged once more, pooling like liquid night, ready to consume both the light and the very essence they had fought to reclaim. As the fog of despair swirled tighter, Mike felt the crystal tremble in their hands, a harbinger of unknown consequences. What if we unleash something worse? The energy rattled. They had awakened something, and the price of their defiance might demand more than they were prepared to pay. "Jenna!" he shouted, the dread pooling in the pit of his stomach. But before she could answer, the shadows lunged, the ancient power they had awakened roaring back to life. Could they hold their ground, or had they just sealed their fate with the darkness? As the light flickered, threatening to drown in the encroaching night, a chilling thought gripped Mike even harder: maybe the true horror had only just begun. Time twisted like the night around them, choking off the last remnants of hope. The chant reached an unimaginable pitch, echoing through the clearing as the growls morphed into howls of monstrous rage. Shadows consumed their world, creeping closer, each razor-sharp fawn eager for blood. It felt like a nightmare, squeezing their chests, making it hard to breathe. The air crackled with energy, raw and primal. "Jenna!" Mike's voice burst forth, desperation bleeding into every word. "We need to find a way. Now." His heart pounded like a war drum, driven by adrenaline coursing through his veins as the leader of the dark creatures approached, eyes ablaze, hate radiating from its snarled visage. I can't hold it alone." Jenna cried out, teeth chattering, fear spilling over her composure. The shadows danced like living beings, coiling around the edges of her light, trying to extinguish her resolve. "Together, Jenna. We've got to pull from every memory we have, the times we laughed, the moments we felt alive. We're stronger than this," Mike urged, seizing her shoulders with conviction. The crystal pulsed once more, responding to their turmoil, a reminder of the power they hadn't yet fully embraced. A fleeting look of determination crossed Jenna's face, and she nodded slowly, an unspoken bond reaffirming between them. "You're right for Lily. For us. We can't let it take us." Their hearts synchronized, beating in unison, they focused on the glow from the crystal, letting it wash over them like a beacon against the encroaching dark. The chanting remained relentless, a deafening chorus ringing in their ears, but they pushed through the cacophony, digging into the well of memories that were theirs. "Remember our wedding?" Mike whispered, urgency dripping off each syllable. "That dance under the stars? The way you smiled?" Jenna's eyes flickered, and a warmth spread through them as they fought against the creeping shadows. "Remember the day we brought Lily home?" she added, her voice breaking through the fear. Her tiny fingers wrapped around mine. "She brought light into our lives." As they recalled their treasured moments together, the crystal drew brightness from their connection, shimmering like a star amidst the threats pooling around them. The dark figures paused, shadows rippled, caught off guard by the essence flowing from Mike and Jenna. "That's it. Feed the light," Mike shouted, feeling a surge shake the depths of his soul. The connection grew stronger, and flashes of laughter, love, and joy illuminated the night, pushing against the dark, and the shadows shrank back. "Harness it," Show them what we are. Jenna shouted, her voice fierce, light erupting from the crystal like a supernova as they focused on their bond, their love igniting the depths of their determination. The shadows writhed under the newfound luminosity, screams erupting like a monstrous symphony of despair. You think you can defy us? Screeched the leader, its growl twisting with rage. You will be consumed by your choices. Time darted forward, reshaping the night. The ground shook as dark tendrils lashed toward them again, but they were not ready to submit. Calloused hands held the light tightly, stark determination woven with unwavering love. As Jenna flared her energy within the crystal, she shouted, "We reclaim our choice. We come together." A bolt of brilliant light blasted from the crystal, splitting the shadows like thunder through a storm, amplifying everything they had faced so far and filling the forest with a radiant glow. The Dark Leader howled in outrage, but even its fury could shrink beneath the light. The light sped forward with a torrent of energy, sweeping over the monstrous creatures, dissolving them into wisps of shadow before their cries. Together. They cried, channeling every moment, every ounce of strength they possessed, pushing against the chains of the haunting night. With one final surge, they unleashed the light in a catastrophic wave, banishing the darkness back into the void that had birthed it. The ground trembled and roared as shadows dissipated like smoke. Hanging in the air. The oppressive atmosphere lightened, and quietness cloaked the forest. Breathless, Mike and Jenna stood still, the remnants of ancient shadows clawing at the air trying to come back but failing. It was gone, their fears, the darkness, the looming threat. It was retreating within itself, snuffed out by the brilliance of their defiance, but the crystal remained warm in Jenna's grip, its pulse a reminder of what they had endured. Did we do it? She panted, eyes wide amidst the dimming echoes. Mike nodded, relief flooding through him, but he took a breath. For now, but it's always tied to us, Jenna. We need to remember what we've faced. The darkness will seek to come back. They embraced, shoulders shaking, tears mixing with laughter as they realized they had won this night. They would return home, reunited with Lily, and together they would continue to cherish their light, guarding against shadows that might rise again. As the first light of dawn illuminated the horizon, Mike felt hope bloom in his heart. They stood to face whatever lay ahead, hand in hand, a fierce love ready to confront any darkness together. And that, he knew, would always be enough. Now, as this journey reaches its end, there is something crucial we need from you. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now. Your likes feed the algorithm, and believe me, they make a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Let's hear what you think. And please, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know it's vital to support the channel. Don't miss out. Your engagement matters.